President Donald Trump has shocked the world with a move that few saw coming, upending the global conversation about the war in Ukraine. In a dramatic shift from previous U.S. policy, Trump has unveiled a bold new strategy that aims to bring the grinding conflict to a decisive end, one way or another. The White House, after months of behind-the-scenes deliberations and mounting international pressure, has decided to take a far more aggressive stance. Trump's administration is now determined to force a resolution, believing that only a clear ultimatum can break the deadlock between Russia and Ukraine. On July 14, 2025, Trump issued a stark ultimatum to Moscow. Russia has exactly 50 days to agree to a peace deal with Ukraine or face consequences unlike any seen before in this conflict. The announcement sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles and left world leaders scrambling to respond. This is not a suggestion. It's a hard deadline, backed by the threat of overwhelming military and economic retaliation. Trump's message is clear. The era of half measures is over, and the U.S. is prepared to escalate its involvement if Russia refuses to cooperate. As part of this new approach, the U.S. will send billions of dollars in advanced weaponry to Ukraine, including 17 state-of-the-art Patriot missile systems. These powerful air defense systems are designed to counter Russian missile and drone attacks, potentially shifting the balance on the battlefield. NATO allies are also stepping up, purchasing U.S.-made weapons for Kyiv and signaling a new level of Western resolve. European leaders, once hesitant, are now aligning more closely with Washington's hardline stance, hoping to present a united front against Russian aggression. But the real pressure comes from the economic front. If Russia refuses to negotiate, Trump has threatened to impose severe tariffs and sweeping secondary sanctions on any country that continues to buy Russian exports, especially oil and gas. This move could disrupt global energy markets and put enormous strain on Russia's economy. Tariffs could reach as high as 100%, aiming to choke off the financial lifelines that fund Russia's war machine. The threat of such drastic measures has already rattled markets and sent the Russian ruble tumbling, raising fears of a deeper economic crisis in Moscow. In a rare display of unity, the U.S. Senate has shown overwhelming bipartisan support for Trump's plan, with 85 senators backing his authority to impose tariffs up to an astonishing 500%. This level of consensus is almost unheard of in today's polarized political climate, underscoring the gravity of the moment. Yet, not everyone is on board. Some in Trump's own base, including outspoken figures like Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, are questioning the wisdom of deep U.S. involvement in what they call a European war. They warn that escalating the conflict could drag America into another costly foreign entanglement. Trump now finds himself walking a political tightrope, projecting strength and determination on the world stage while facing growing isolationist pushback at home. The stakes are high and the risks are real, both for his presidency and for global stability. As the world watches and waits, the question remains, will Trump's high-stakes gamble finally bring peace to Ukraine, or will it push the conflict into even more dangerous territory? The next 50 days could reshape the future of Europe and the world. Russia's response was swift, calculated, and dripping with sarcasm, as if Moscow had been waiting for just such a moment to flex its rhetorical muscles on the world stage. Dmitry Medvedev, deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council and a longtime Kremlin insider, wasted no time in mocking Trump's ultimatum on social media. He dismissed the warning as theatrical and too dramatic, painting Trump's move as little more than political grandstanding for a global audience. Medvedev's words conjured an image of a world bracing for impact, only for Russia to respond with a collective shrug, as if the threats from Washington were nothing more than background noise in Moscow's daily affairs. Belligerent Europe was disappointed. Russia didn't care, he wrote, aiming to project an image of unwavering defiance and to reassure Russia's allies that the Kremlin would not be rattled by Western bluster. Medvedev's role in these moments is clear. He is the voice of raw, nationalistic defiance, rallying support at home, energizing the Russian base, and seeking to demoralize adversaries abroad with his biting rhetoric. His public dismissal is carefully crafted to frame Russia as unbothered by Western threats, refusing to be intimidated, rushed, or even particularly interested in what the U.S. has to say. This is psychological warfare at its most theatrical. Moscow wants Trump's move to appear desperate, not dangerous, and to sow doubt among Western audiences about the seriousness of U.S. intentions. Whether this bravado truly reflects the Kremlin's inner thinking or is simply a mask for public consumption remains unclear, but the message Medvedev sends is one of absolute disdain and calculated confidence. The stage is now set for a tense 50 days, with Russia signaling in every way possible that it will not bend to U.S. pressure, no matter how intense the rhetoric or how high the stakes. As the world watches, the question lingers: is this all just posturing, or does Russia's confidence run deeper than anyone in the West dares to admit? Officially, Russia's diplomatic response was more measured but just as firm. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov stated Russia is open to dialogue, but not under ultimatums. "We do not accept approaches based on ultimatums. That is not the way to talk to Russia," he declared. The Kremlin insists any talks must be between equals, not as a surrender to U.S. demands. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov called Trump's statements very serious, confirming Putin would analyze them before responding. Russia also claims U.S. and NATO weapons only encourage Kiev to keep fighting. This dual-track response, public ridicule and formal rejection, lets Russia project strength while keeping the door open for talks on its own terms. Moscow's message: it won't negotiate with a gun to its head. Europe's reaction to Trump's ultimatum was mixed. Frontline nations like Denmark, the Netherlands, and Sweden welcomed the move, joining the U.S.-led weapons initiative for Ukraine. Italian PM Giorgia Meloni praised the shift, seeing it as a decisive push for peace. The threat of harsh trade restrictions on Russia resonated with countries hit hard by the war's economic fallout. But not all were enthusiastic. Some diplomats worried the ultimatum could backfire, provoking Russian escalation. The EU's own sanctions efforts stalled, exposing divisions among member states. Trump's unilateral action was seen as both a show of leadership and a reminder of Europe's internal struggles. The alliance is united in public, but behind the scenes, anxiety and disagreement remain. For Ukraine, Trump's announcement brought both hope and anxiety. The promise of advanced U.S. weapons is a lifeline, boosting morale and defense. President Zelensky expressed gratitude, seeing new leverage for peace. But the 50-day deadline is a double-edged sword. Some fear it could provoke Russia to launch a major offensive before time runs out. Fighting rages on, especially in Donetsk and Sumy, with cities like Kharkiv and Kramatorsk under constant attack. The timeline creates a period of extreme danger, as Russia may try to seize more territory before negotiations. For Ukraine, the next 50 days are a perilous waiting game, hoping for peace, bracing for escalation. The stakes have never been higher. The true force behind Trump's ultimatum isn't just in his words, but in the looming threat of secondary sanctions, a tool that can reshape the global economic landscape almost overnight. These sanctions would not only target Russia directly, but also punish any country, company, or financial institution that continues to do business with Moscow. The reach is vast, and the consequences severe, especially for major buyers like China, India, and Turkey, nations that have become crucial lifelines for Russian exports since the start of the conflict. Experts warn that if these markets are cut off, Russia could lose up to $75 billion in export revenues every year. Such a blow would not only cripple its war effort, but also destabilize its entire economy, potentially leading to internal unrest. Yet, the risks of this strategy are global. Removing Russian energy from the world market could send oil and gas prices soaring, trigger a new wave of inflation, and even tip multiple economies into recession, with ripple effects felt from Europe to Asia and beyond. Allies and neutral countries could find themselves caught in the crossfire, facing economic hardship and political backlash at home. While the U.S. economy itself is not immune, American businesses, workers, and consumers could all feel the sting of higher prices and market instability. The mere threat of these sanctions is often enough to force companies and countries into compliance, as few are willing to risk being cut off from the U.S. financial system. But if these measures are actually enacted, the resulting economic shockwaves could be as disruptive and far-reaching as the war itself, affecting millions of lives. Trump's team now faces a dangerous balancing act: how to inflict maximum pressure on Russia without accidentally crashing the global economy or alienating key allies in the process. As the deadline approaches, uncertainty hangs in the air, and the world holds its breath, waiting to see what comes next. While leaders trade threats, the war's brutal reality continues in Ukraine. Russia's summer offensive pounds Donetsk and Sumy, with relentless airstrikes on cities like Kharkiv and Kryvyi Rih. Ukraine's air defenses intercept hundreds of drones, but some always get through, causing devastation. Ukraine fights back, striking Russian targets, escalating the violence on both sides. Civilians endure power outages, food shortages, and constant fear. Every day brings new losses and shattered lives. The human cost mounts, even as world leaders debate deadlines and sanctions. For millions, peace remains a distant hope. The war's true toll is measured in suffering, not strategy. Russia's defiance is rooted in confidence it can outlast Western pressure. Moscow has shifted its economy eastward, relying on China and India for energy sales. Years of preparation, stockpiling reserves, ramping up military production, and fostering nationalistic resolve have steeled Russia for a long fight. State media frames the war as an existential struggle against NATO, keeping public support high. Militarily, Russia believes time is on its side, betting Western unity will crack before its own resolve does. The Kremlin sees Trump's deadline as a sign of Western impatience, not a real threat. Russia's strategy: endure hardship, wait out the West, and negotiate only from strength. The official rejection of negotiations under duress is more than posturing. It's a core belief. Moscow signals it won't be forced to the table. Trump's ultimatum has brought the war to a crossroads. The U.S. has raised the stakes, hoping to force Russia to negotiate or face crippling sanctions. But Moscow's rejection signals a dangerous period ahead. Russia may escalate militarily before the deadline. If sanctions hit, the world could face economic turmoil and a deeper stalemate. The outcome depends on Western resolve, the response of countries like China and India, and the resilience of Ukraine. The Kremlin's next move is crucial. Will it see the ultimatum as a threat or a challenge to defy? For now, Ukraine waits, caught in the middle of a high-stakes standoff. The next 50 days will test the will of all sides, with millions of lives hanging in the balance. Whether this leads to peace or more violence remains dangerously uncertain.